Hey, friends, welcome back to Thrive Line Healing Podcast. This is episode 89. And this week we're going to talk about how to support the body post vaccination. Of course, we're talking specifically the COVID vaccination because that's where we're at in life right now. But how to support the body. If you're a person that chose to take it, now you're regretting taking it. If you're a person that didn't even want to take it and you felt like you had no other options because you were going to lose your job and you took it, and you've experienced side effects or you're fearful of side effects, right? This one's for you.
Yes, there's a lot. There's a lot that's around the COVID vaccine, and even for folks, who've gotten the vaccine and then they're trying to figure out if they want to do the boosters or not, right? Or whether they're getting that pressure to do that. There are a couple of things that we can do to help to, it's not just mitigate the symptoms, but to understand, right, how this vaccine is working in our body, right? What we can do to optimize our health, to promote our health so that we have less side effects, less like even adverse effects or long-term, and to support the immune system, because that's what vaccines are supposed to do, is to stimulate the immune system, as well as to kind of help to address sort of the mindset around, getting vaccinated if that wasn't your first choice.
Right.
So to start off, just kind of understanding, right, what vaccines are supposed to do and what they're supposed to do in supporting our immune system, or not supporting our immune system, I'm sorry, stimulating your immune system to target a specific element, right? A specific, piece. And so with this vaccine, again, the goal is to be able to recognize, right, the COVID virus, so that your immune system will start that process earlier instead of waiting, the 10 or 12 days that it naturally takes your immune system to kick it in and get started. So things to support the immune system is always going to be helpful, right? Sometimes around the vaccination, either pre or post, I have people consider doubling their dose. So things like vitamin D, vitamin C, right? You may already be doing vitamin D and vitamin C to help to support your immune system. We are seeing that if people increase their vitamin D, just usually have people double the dose, either 1 to 2 days before they get their shot, and then 1 to 2 days after. It seems to mitigate the symptoms a little bit so that you don't have as many of the side effects, like the headaches, the arm pain that people may experience, sort of that may feel like flu-like symptoms for some people, where you have to take a day or two off work because you've got sort of the joint pain and the just feeling run down. That can really help with that as well. So, and then after your 2 days after the vaccine, then you can just go back to your regular vitamin D maintenance levels. Now, if you're not taking vitamin D at all, then I have people consider doing, just like sort of that maintenance dose. So if you're not taking any, then do the maintenance dose of 5,000 the 2 days before, 2 days after. Right. And then, so if you're taking the maintenance dose of 5,000, then do 10,000 2 days before, 2 days after. Yeah. And then go back down to your 5,000 maintenance dose. Yeah. That can help for a lot of different reasons. One, it does support the immune system, right? We've been hearing that all along. It also supports the liver and sort of our detox pathways. So just like if we're exposed to any other chemicals or medication, our body has to integrate that, and there's other things beside things that stimulate the immune system in there that we may have to detox from.
Okay.
So it helps with that aspect as well. Yeah. So that's usually something that's safe, everybody can do. Vitamin C, if you're taking vitamin C, I have people double the dose after the vaccine, right? So say you're taking 3,000 a day, or even 1,000 a day. I have people double the dose after you get the shot. So like usually 3 to 4 days afterwards, that will also help with any like flu-like symptoms that might occur. Now, there isn't really a difference as far as like supporting your body with the vitamin D and vitamin C, whether it's the first vaccine, the second vaccine, or the booster, to be honest. I'm having people consider doing that sort of all the way through. Now, some folks who are now having to get vaccinated are, they may just do the first, depend on which one you have access to, right? If you're doing a 2-shot series, and they don't get a chance to do the supplementation with the first one, I definitely have them do it with the second one, because the second shot can create more of a symptom picture. You can have a lot more symptoms with the second one because you've already been introduced to the vaccine, or to the antigens, what we call it, or to the COVID pieces in the first one. So the second one, if your body has an immune response, it's doing its job. That's great. But it's more likely to get it with the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. If you're worried about, or if you have significant like headaches or the pain post vaccine, I am having people consider magnesium and arnica. Okay, this is just sort of something like local. I'm hearing a lot of folks are getting headaches just right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
But so magnesium can be really helpful for that. And that's more just kind of like mitigate the symptoms, if you will. Most people are deficient in magnesium, but magnesium is great for headaches, body aches, right? So that can be beneficial, either an Epsom salt bath that evening, or doing a dose of magnesium during the day. If you're experiencing like swelling or pain in your at the vaccine location, which sometimes people get all the time, right? Whether it's like a flu vaccine or tetanus, I'm having people consider doing arnica, the homeopathic. You can buy it at Walmart in the gel form, and just apply it to the area where you were vaccinated, and it will help reduce that swelling and that pain. It's also great for like bruised and swelling areas. So it's also great if you had to get a blood draw. Arnica can be really beneficial for that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, where things can be a little bit tricky is that there are different like reported adverse events where that may be a little bit long term, right? So things like myocarditis, where it can affect the heart. I tell folks, if you're experiencing, what to look for, right? Like what to look for post-vaccine. So if you're experiencing heart palpitations, chest pain, irregular like heartbeat, you feel like your heart's kind of being fluttery, or like spikes in blood pressure, you definitely want to go get checked out. Okay. If you're noticing changes in your breathing at all, any changes with like you feel like you're wheezing, or your chest is really tight and it's hard to get a deep breath, go to get checked out. Yeah. If you notice any swelling, right, like swelling in your face, in your hands, in your feet, post vaccine, that's definitely worth getting checked out as well. Yeah. That's not happening in the majority of people. Yeah. But I think it's helpful to know sort of like what sort of the red flags are so, you know what to look for. So it's like, oh, if this happens to me, I know, instead of just waiting on it and sitting on it and being like, oh, it'll pass. It's like, oh, okay, I should probably, go in and get it checked out.
So can you talk about, because now they've introduced it to kids 5 to 12, what should they look for in their kids if they've got their kids vaccinated?
Yes. So right off the bat, if your child is ill, okay, if they've got allergies, runny nose, stuffy nose, watery eyes, if they seem sick in any way, that is not a good day to get vaccinated. Okay. Because their immune system's already fighting something, right? And to give your child the best opportunities, goes for adults too, but give your immune system the best opportunity is that you don't want to be fighting off something. Okay, so go when they're healthy. And then for kids, sometimes they may not like recognize chest pain, right? But if they seem like a change in energy, right? Like if they're a little bit more sluggish or more want to stay home, right? Or like want to stay on the couch, they're just a little bit more sluggish, like they could be getting sick. You definitely want that to get checked out. If it's different, so they could spike a fever because you're stimulating the immune system, and kids' immune systems are a little bit more trigger happy, if you will, right? They're a little bit more like on point than for adults. And so for some kids, that immune system can spike a fever post-vaccine. Usually we're not too worried about that if that fever doesn't break 100. If it breaks 100 or if it lasts more than a day, it's worth, a call to the pediatrician or getting checked out. Now, sometimes, usually you don't expect like runny nose, right? Or like respiratory symptoms after the vaccine. So if your child starts getting that runny nose, that like upper respiratory, right, sore throat, things like that, that's not a reaction that we expect. So again, go get checked out. For kids, you can still do vitamin D pre and post vaccine. That works really well. For kids, it's based on weight, right? So you can either reach out and ask. Usually, depending on the size of the child, we're doing anywhere from like 400 IUs to maybe 1,000 IUs. So they don't need to take really large doses to support their immune system if they're getting vaccinated. I love to have Arnica on hand because it hurts when you get shot. And sometimes it's a little bit harder for kids. So the Arnica works really well because like it's topical. You can just apply it on. You can actually apply it on before the vaccine to kind of help so that they don't get as much swelling and it's not as painful. So I like that. And if you get Arnica, it's called Arnicare at Walmart. It's in the muscle rub section, like with the Icy Hot and like the Asper cream and all that stuff. Sometimes it's either the very top or the very bottom because not a lot of people buy it. So but that's a great thing to have for kids as well. But because kids are really resilient, our bodies in general are really resilient. But you're just looking for like those major symptoms, like if you do notice or if you hear wheezing in their breathing, then post-vaccine, that's definitely things to keep an eye out for.
And they usually have a lot of mood changes, right? Like that's another way to tell like something's going on is when they're
right? If you notice behavior changes that are like out of the norm for them, it's definitely worth getting checked out. Okay. So if they start like having meltdowns and they didn't have meltdowns before, right? Or like behavior changes or like anger changes, then it's definitely worth getting checked out. Because you can have side effects that address the nervous system that can kind of translate into behavior changes, and sometimes those are things can also be like tics or like the meltdowns. Sometimes even changes in small things like they don't like the texture of foods anymore, right? Or those things can also be associated, so it's definitely worth getting them checked out. Perfect.
Sorry.
No, that's all right, you're back. Let's see. So I think that's mostly like the pediatric stuff that I wanted to touch base on. But I wanted to touch base on even with the the pediatric community, but even with adults who the vaccine wasn't their first choice, right, is things that we can kind of address sort of that mindset around sort of this vaccine and what we can do to kind of, help support that. And what works for like in the moment, I guess, is Rescue Remedy that I really like. I love this for kids too, to be honest. Not necessarily because the kids didn't want the vaccine, but it's because the kids are getting shot, right? So I like to use Rescue Remedy because it comes in little pastilles, but it helps with that, those anxious feelings. It helps with that stress, that kind of that worry around getting vaccinated or just getting a shot, right? Most kids don't like to get shots to begin with. And since a lot of the folks who are giving vaccines, like in these vaccine clinics, may not have a lot of experience with giving kids vaccines, right? They may be used to giving adults like flu shots, and adults, you just take it, right? But when you're a kid, it's a lot. I mean, you just let those emotions roll. And so, but Bach flower remedies, the Rescue Remedy, you can often find in health food stores. Most health food stores are like natural grocery stores like Sprouts or natural grocers or Whole Foods carry those on the shelf. They got really popular a few years ago because Oprah started using them, and like she was advertising a lot, and other celebrities use them for stress, like before they go on for performances. And so they're a little bit more widespread now. Yeah, sometimes I find them at Walgreens and CVS. So, but yes, try Rescue Remedy. Yeah,
Cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So then let's talk about, like, from a coach's perspective on the mindset. Like, this is where my part comes into the conversation. Dr. Carmen and I were talking about this before, and I think part of it is the programming, and I've only lived in America, so that's what I'm going to talk about. And maybe if you're from other countries, this may be relatable too, but the programming here is very heavily conventional medicine programming, in the sense that the message to us is a lot of things cannot be cured. We just do symptom management, right? Like, the thing that comes off the top of my head is like when we tell people like, oh, you can't cure herpes, you can't cure like shingles, you can't, like, once these things happen, it's irreversible. Yeah. Right? Like, that is the message that we get. And then we feel like as a society, our only option then is like to just take medicine, cross our fingers, hope it works, hope the side effects are less, and accept the fact that you're always going to have whatever. Right?
Yeah.
And I think for some of us that have been programmed that way and have had not great experiences with that medical community, it creates a lot of fear, right? So there's a group of people that are fearful of the virus, and their savior is the vaccine. There's a group of people that they're fearful of the vaccine, mm-hmm, and the long-term consequences that we think can happen, right? Because we don't know.
Yeah.
Okay? And we don't know what the virus is going to do previously. We don't know what the vaccine, we don't know any of the long-term side effects, consequences, right? Because we're programmed that there's going to be long-term side effects that your body can never get over.
Yeah.
That creates a lot of fear and drama. And from a coach's perspective, we were talking about this earlier, whatever we believe is what we will create and what we will find evidence for. So for some of us that are anti-vaccine, right, and don't want to get it, fearful of it, our livelihood is then being threatened. right? And we feel like we have to get it to keep our jobs. And we get it, it sends us down a mental spiral, right? Look what I've injected into myself. I'm opposed to it. I don't know what it's going to do. This could have long-term consequences on my health. I've ruined my health. I'm going to have things that I'm going to always struggle from because of this vaccine. This is permanent. I can't remove it. I've made a wrong decision. I can't take it back. You can see.
Yeah, it spirals.
We just get on this crazy train and ride that sucker, right? I totally would. If I was forced to get it, I would be one of those humans, right? And I think it's because we don't fully understand, like you understand, the body's ability to be resilient and the body's ability to take huge blows and still make comebacks from it, right?
Yeah.
This is just like kind of a silly, like, I didn't understand this. I think it's a great example, but I didn't understand this until I work with you for so long. So one of the guys I follow on Instagram, his dog,
yeah,
I don't know what happened, but he died. It came back to life. It was paralyzed and blind.
okay.
It overcame the paralyzation and it overcame the blindness. And he said, if only the human body could do this. Well, I know because my cat got hit by a car, could not walk. And now after 4 weeks, like, she's totally fine, right? Like, she jumps up in the garage and stuff. And when I talked to her vet, I was like, she's a mammal. We're a mammal. Like, why can she do that? And then I have to go, like, as a mammal, through all these surgeries and medication. He's like, well, the human body can do this. It's just we poison it daily. Yeah. So it's always like, it can't make the comeback like your cat did. Right. And so, like, to understand that, like, our body is so resilient. It can literally, like that cat, get hit by a car, not walk, and then heal itself and be perfectly fine.
Like, yes. Yeah. The human body can do that. Yeah. I think because we don't see that as often, maybe. Yeah. And so we don't always have that evidence.
Right.
Because if you get hit by a car, you go to the doctor, right? You go to the emergency room, they patch you up, then they do surgery. And then things may correct, but they will always be a little bit different, right? But oftentimes that leads to, like, long-term pain, right? Long-term pain, long-term restrictions, and that sort of thing. And not to say that you shouldn't go to the emergency room if you get hit by a car, but it's different in that the conventional world, the medical model that we have in the US is very much we're gonna fix it, right? Yeah. We're going to fix it. And you said this, because we've been programmed and taught that the doctors, the medical community is going to fix me, that it's not my body healing itself. Right. There are some things that they can help with to make that healing faster, but it's our body that does that healing process. It's our cells that regrow, right, to heal those bones. It's our cells that regrow those organs, right, like that regenerates our liver, our lungs, our kidneys. And that can happen. They are programmed, if you will, in our DNA and on our genes. That is their job. They've got those instructions to constantly be doing that. It's what inhibits that. That's what we call in the naturopathic world are obstacles to cure, right? If we have obstacles in the way that's keeping our body from healing itself, those are the ones that we have to address in order for that healing process to occur, right? So let's see. Can I bring this back around? So if we experience things like vaccination, right? Other things that we put into our body, right? So even if you look at, like, IV drug users, right? Narcotics.
Yep.
Some people could argue even like McDonald's every day, right? If you're putting those things in our body, intentionally, they do create a situation in our body that our body has to overcome. Okay. Here's the catch. Our body can overcome that if you don't have constant insults, right? Like if you eat McDonald's once versus eating it every day, right? If you do IV drugs, and then you stop doing IV drugs, or you take a vaccine and it's like that's not going to be a recurring thing, right? Our body can recover from that because it is so resilient. Now, the biggest thing that, like I said, that inhibits it from recovering are those obstacles, are those other insults. So the challenge is that if the vaccine wasn't your first choice and then you had to get vaccinated for whatever reason, and wondering, hey, did I create this damage in my body, right? Am I opening this window for long-term negative effects? What creates those long-term negative effects is often additional insults around the same time, or it's like if you're in an inflammatory state, right? If you're constantly in an inflammatory situation and experiencing a lot of chronic inflammation, it's going to be harder for your body to recover from, this shot. And so it's like taking those variables in consideration and giving your body the best opportunity to heal from that vaccine by addressing all those variables, right, at the same time.
And one of the variables is mindset.
Yes. Right? Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of an example. Okay, like IV users, right? Narcotic drug IV users. Let's say they're like, you have a person that's doing it every day. They stop. They're like, oh my God, what have I done to my body?
Yeah.
I'm trashing it for a while, right?
Yes.
And they just make a decision like I'm it's not that simple. I get that, but I'm just trying to use an example that isn't 15 minutes long, right? They make a decision, I'm not going to do it. They stop doing it. They start investing in their health, right? And they believe that they can heal their body, right? It will heal their body. There's not that chronic, constant attack on it by continual use.
Exactly.
When someone takes the vaccine and doesn't want to take it, they take it. When they ruminate on that decision and they beat themselves up on that decision and they feel shame and they feel guilt and they feel anger and they don't deal with those emotions and the mindset behind it, instead they continue to ruminate daily, it is just like chronically attacking the body. Like you're doing the same thing. Like we're trying to remove the IV use. They stop the use, the body can heal, right? You stay in the mindset of shame, guilt, anger, it's continually using. You've got to get over the mindset piece to free the body up to start healing. Does that make sense?
Yes, that totally makes sense. Yeah, because that's another insult, right? Like you're creating this obstacle to cure because we've talked about in the past how our thoughts create your health, right? So if you are ruminating on the negative aspects and beating yourself up in this self-loathing, you're creating a picture of disease, we would say, right? Or of illness. And so that's creating those insults or those chronic obstacles.
Yes. So it's first believing and trusting your body, believing in your body's innate intelligence and that it wants to heal and be fully healthy, right? And trusting that your body has the capability to be resilient and bounce back. That is the beginning of the mindset work. Okay. When you had to get this vaccine and you're so upset about it, it's like, you first have to come to a place of like believing my body's resilient.
Yeah.
We can heal from this, right? This does not mean long-term things. It can heal from this. The possibility, even if you can't believe that, believing in the possibility that your body could be resilient, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to lean into the fact and set and be with your thoughts.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I did a video on this yesterday. Why does it take so long for us to get what we want? Is it because we are constantly running away from our emotions? We're buffering.
Yeah.
Not waste a lot of time, right? So being willing to sit down and say, this is the decision I made. I chose this, right? Whether it was forced, I still chose this because my other choice was this, and I didn't like the consequences of this choice.
Yeah.
And here are the emotions I'm feeling, and I'm going to allow myself to feel these. I'm going to sit here for 15 minutes and I'm going to allow myself to feel the anger. I'm going to scream. I'm going to hit a pillow, right? Or I'm going to cry, or I'm going to feel all the emotion. There's going to be multiple. So there's probably going to be anger. There's going to probably be guilt. There's going to be shame. There's going to be mourning,
Grief.
right? And just like allowing yourself to lean into all those emotions and feel them and experience them. They're not going to last forever, right? They're a chemical reaction that will eventually dissipate when we lean into them. But when we avoid feeling these emotions, they continue to grow, and they continue to grow, and they continue to consume more and more of our brain energy, right? But we can just sit down, feel it, have someone hold space for us that's comfortable with these emotions, and just will sit there next to you and allow you to feel it and not try to fix it.
Yeah.
Right? Writing down your thoughts on a piece of paper. Here's like thought download. Here, I got the vaccine and I'm right. Like I got the vaccine. All your thoughts about that. So then you can like free your brain to like make decisions and think differently. Like, okay, the decision's made. What do I need to do now to support my mental health and to support my body to help it fully recover from this, trusting and knowing that it is resilient and the body can come back from almost anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I cover it? Was that helpful?
I think that's perfect because we can be our biggest cheerleader, or we can be our worst supporter, right? And so I think that, when we look at it from this example of, post-vaccine, and doing that thought download, right? And just recognizing and sitting in those feelings is so important in like, not just letting it go, but also, if you, like self-forgiveness, right? And even and a little bit of self-love. It's like, okay, you're having your own back. It's like, I made this decision because it was the best one that I could see for me right now. And by sitting in those feelings and understanding, right, and experiencing those thoughts and those feelings gives you an opportunity to be to have your own back and be more confident in other decisions. But also that will stimulate that physical healing in your body. Yeah. That will be one of the biggest, what do you call it when you have like all the dominoes laid out and you like do that first push and all the dominoes begin to fall in place? To be able to sit in a space and do that mind work and that thought work is going to be essential in starting that domino effect of healing your body and increasing that resilience for after the effects of a vaccine.
Yeah. And I mean, that's all we do in New Beginnings. Like our program, like that's like, if you like how we optimize health, these individuals that are in our program, how we optimize their health, how we optimize their brain, and the utilization of their brain so they can get the results they want in their life, right? Is we support the body to heal these neurotransmitters, these hormones, and these adrenals. But we also do the mindset work, right? Like we unravel all of this disempowerment, this inability to be resilient towards stress, right? Like to see things differently, to choose the thoughts you want, so you can start healing your body from your brain top down.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's the exciting part of new beginnings, is applying this to the different areas within your life, right? Within the moods, within your thought process, right, within your physical symptoms, and actually applying it. It works out that, using the vaccine is a great example these days, but just imagine in working in the new beginning programs how you can apply this to all aspects of your life, to stimulate that healing physically, mentally, and even spiritually.
Yeah. There was another point that I was going to make. I want to take the judgment out for people, right? Like if you get it and you didn't want it and you're judging yourself, super unhelpful.
Yeah.
Right. But I want you to take a minute to imagine, like I do this with my clients. I love this imagery. Go back to ancient Greece into the Colosseum. Right. And remember in the Colosseum, like they would have a gladiator come in and he would fight, or she would fight either another opponent or a lion. Right. And like all the people would sit around and watch, and they would fight to the death.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When we judge ourselves, we are in the Colosseum originally. We are on the field and you are battling against that lion. Right? You're doing the best you can with what tools you have. And when we judge ourselves, I cry every time I think about this because, we judge ourselves. We separate from ourselves and we take our happy ass up into the stands and we watch and we judge. We watch our past self and we judge them. And we criticize them and we shame them, and we're sitting up there in our little high horses in our stands, like, well, I would have done it better. I'd have done this. You should have done it that way, right? As you sit safely in the stands. The work is you get your ass out of the stands and you get back in the Colosseum and you have yourselves back and you have your past selves back and you understand, I did the best I could. I was doing the best I could. But I was in it and I stayed in it and I showed up and I fought. I didn't go sit in the stands and judge myself.
That's powerful.
It is.
That's very powerful. Yeah, I love that.
So when you judge yourself, know that your ass is sitting up there in the stands. You better get back in there with yourself. That's what I have for you people today.
That's perfect. I love it. That's a good place to.
Yeah. So you get it, you don't get it. Don't judge yourself and believe in the body's ability to be resilient and to heal. And then that's what your body wants. It is for you. It's on your team. It wants to be healthy. It wants to be strong. It's willing to forgive sometimes our mistakes and the way we treat it and still show up and be healthy. It will heal. Sometimes it takes time.
Yeah.
Anything else, my friend?
I think that's it for today.
All right. We'll see you guys later.